right?
Yeah, sure. Stream is live now. I get it.
Yes.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
we're live, Khalid and I. I think Khalid would like to talk about his streaming success with Duvid, who is an anti-Zionist Jew, because he's got 1,000 views, haven't you, Khalid?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to get a lot of 1K, whatever many K views when I was in Speaker's Corner for normal videos. So yeah, I don't really get particularly excited about that kind of stuff. Like, I just try to analyze why one video would be more popular than another, and it's not usually that meaningful. It's kind of the opposite. So the video that was the live stream that I did last Sunday, of my weekly live streams, for people who don't know, do check out, search my name, Khalid Zafir, you'll find out. Find my streams, my channel, was why have the Israelis become evil? Like, I was interested in how is that possible? Why? So I start my streams with playing a clip, and we react to the clip. And the clip was of, I think, from a podcast called Two Young Nice Jewish Boys or something. I can't remember what it was called. And the people are just like saying, we really enjoy people dying in Gaza. We really don't care about it. In fact, we would prefer it if there was live streamed pain and suffering from Gaza as we enjoyed ourselves. We would enjoy being in Israel even more. So actually enjoy the deaths of babies and stuff. So I was intrigued to discuss this with another Jewish person. I'm not Jewish, I'm a Muslim, with a Jewish person.
And I think Duvid said that.
Yeah. Duvid did a really
I think Duvid said something about the timing of it. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I think Duvid.
I think he said,
go on. I'm going to stop talking for a minute.
No, okay, I'm going to shut up and you carry on. We'll keep doing this.
No, I thought yeah. Anyway, so on Duvid said a lot of interesting points. Like, he doesn't like to say this is his opinion, but he did make somehow the case for why Israelis think it's okay to kill people, because like questions like what is evil, what is, like, making everything ambiguous, I guess. And there is a problem with when you don't believe in God, and a lot of these Israelis don't believe in God. They're just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they've been thoroughly westernized, haven't they? And of course, even Western philosophers can't agree on the definition of good and evil. They just don't bother arguing about it. But I guess if you do believe in God, you'd have to say good is what God commands and evil what he forbids, to make it nice and easy, right? And then you have this thing called objective morality. But then liberals say, they promote something called moral relativism, which is kind of pretending that, we liberals will allow you to have your own view of morality, because who knows what is really moral, but you can't break our laws, and we can change the laws at any time we want. So, it is a kind of implicit liberal supremacy. And from what I can remember of what he said, he was saying that you can't really expect people who you are fighting a war with, you can't expect one side to care about, the other side dying, because, I guess in a war, your objective is to kill them. But then I know in Islam that there are certain rules for taking prisoners of war and not killing non-combatants, which clearly those two Jews are not aware of. And I'm sure a lot of Islamophobes are not aware that the Geneva Convention does come from the Quran, doesn't it?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't know, but I can imagine the Quranic principles are very, I don't know, good. They're kind of like,
well, I mean, they're realistic.
Yeah, go on. Tell me about it.
Well, they're realistic in the sense that, the Quran talks about slavery, talks about divorce, talks about disciplining wives, and talks about how to conduct warfare, right? So it just assumes that, even if the whole world were Muslim, people would still go to wars with each other, with each other, and to avoid horrible atrocities, there should be certain rules of warfare, and you don't, and you treat prisoners of war decently. You and yeah, and you don't poison wells, you don't cut trees down, because in conditions of total war, when you destroy people's crops, you poison wells, and you do things like that. What you're going to do is start a famine, which has been known to happen when the Europeans fought their wars of the Reformation, when the Protestants and the Catholics fought with each other. They had no rules, so anything went. So yeah, so and they cause themselves terrible suffering, because according to what I know of the 30 Years' War, it was so bad that most people became cannibals, and
Oh, wow.
after they admitted that they had practiced cannibalism in order to stay alive, the government decided not to execute them, because so many people had already died during these terrible wars, that if you decided to execute these, people who admitted to eating, children and, people just to stay alive, even more people would die. So they kind of, looked the other way. And when I was doing law, there were all these cases of, the sailors being marooned on an island, and they didn't know what to do. They killed the sailor boy, because the older sailors could just do it, and I suppose they would choose the most edible member of their crew or something. They wouldn't eat the most horrible and elderly skinny person or something. And then then they would be rescued, and then they said, well, what happened to the sailor boy? And they said, well, we had to eat him, because how are we to survive? So a lot of English law concerning homicide can be justified, like it was necessary, we had to do it. But self-defense is a complete defense to murder. Provocation is a partial defense to murder. Necessity is also a complete defense, but people will say, well, it wasn't really necessary for you to kill him. But you could say, well, he was already dead, and so we ate him, something like that. But you're not
Yeah.
allowed to eat somebody just to eat them. So there have been, quite terrible cases that I remember law reports.
Yeah. So we would, so I suppose he was justifying. So we were basically in that stream trying to explain how so much evil is possible, and basically what we're saying right now is that once you give up on religion, then you don't have something called objective morality, which is God says this is right and wrong, and it's actually quite confusing as to what is right and wrong. And when you've got the gray areas, you can go down that slippery slope and do increasingly more evil things. So that explains to some extent why evil is more possible, but that doesn't explain why there isn't the same level of evil in the West. Like in England, you don't kill randomly all brown people or something like they're doing in Israel. So, but there are lots of different interesting discussions we had. I don't think David has an interesting way. He didn't he didn't have a personal point of view. He never gives. I don't think anything he says. I don't think he says is his point of view, but he gives some sort of potentially the other person's point of view, or the point of view of Jewish people generally in their perspective. So it's interesting.
Yes, I mean, he calls it a simple truth hypothesis, which I've said, it's saying yes and no at the same time, but he doesn't quite accept that.
But he didn't say that this time. He was just saying like, oh, what is true? What is evil? What is whatever? And also, like he is explaining, I think one of the reasons I think that Israelis are able to be so evil is even if they're not religious, they're brought up on a religious teaching, maybe from birth or whatever, that Jews are superior and other people are less human and they have different rules. And so we had really funny conversations. Like he said, yes, we should have different rules for different people. Like we have different rules for dogs. And like, are you calling non-Jews dogs? Like, you know. So we had a lot of funny conversations, but I think it did expose some of the reasons why evil is possible. So much evil is possible in Israel. I mean, what did you
Yes.
take away? Why do you think so much evil is possible in Israel? Do you think Israelis are evil? Sometimes I question how Zionist you are. And I don't want to go into your definition of Zionist, but the normal definition of Zionist, which is, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, it hasn't been properly defined, right? It just means a homeland for Jews, the idea that Jews deserve a homeland. I mean, I don't know how anyone can expect Jews to say, oh, we don't deserve a homeland, but Chinese people, Vietnamese people, Pakistani people in India, they deserve a homeland, but not us. I mean,
no, it's completely different.
You expect them to say that?
It's like saying Muslims have it's not really, a lot of Jews don't want a homeland. They're quite against the idea of Israel representing
They're the
them.
ones who don't live in Israel, who are comfortable in Europe and America and know they would never want to live in Israel. Of course, they can be anti-Zionist, but then,
No, a lot of anti-Zionists were Zionists before. I think, at least some that I know.
Well, I know there was a time before the state of Israel was established. I mean, there were Jews saying they want to give us a homeland. Tell them we don't want it, because the moment they give us a homeland, they'll tell us to go there. And we don't want to go there. We want to stay in America or Europe, don't we? Because we can't trust these Gentiles. There's always a hidden agenda. And if they give us a homeland, they'll send us all there when they, decide that they, can't stand us anymore.
I think you can't trust the Zionists. I think the whole world is realizing you can't trust the Zionists. I think the Zionists cause a lot of problems for Jews around the world, trying to encourage them to go to Israel when they were quite comfortable living in Morocco and Iraq and all these other places where they still have places, I think.
Well, yes, because, I've been trying to explain to people that Zionism is an Anglo-American imperial project. And when you have a colony, you want to people it, right? When you discover Australia and there's no one there, you round up a whole bunch of white working class people, accuse them of a crime, and say you're guilty. We're going to send you to our penal colony. That there has to be some sort of narrative.
That makes sense. I never thought about that. Why did they send us, British people all the way to Australia? Did they run out of space? But that does make sense.
No, they didn't. And of course, they didn't
populate the colony.
They didn't want to go. Who wants to be sent to the, the back of beyond? So of course they wouldn't go willingly. So they, some crime had to be cooked up to accuse them of something, and then say, right, you lot criminals, you have to be, transported to the other side of the world. But I mean, the Danish. The Danes did the same thing about Greenland and Iceland, right? Iceland is actually the one nearest Denmark, and it's quite green and pleasant. It's Greenland, which is really horrible and icy, that they chose to call Greenland when it should be called Iceland. Yeah. Because they were trying to get these Danes to go and live there, and they wouldn't.
That's so funny. Yeah. I don't really think why it's called Greenland, even though it's just a patch of ice. That's interesting, yeah. To make it look... So if you go, oh, it's Greenland, it's like they turn up there and go, no, it's not very green. Is that what happened? That before maps turned up or something? When did they take over
because there are
Greenland?
all these, devices that they had to do to, send people, across the Atlantic. I mean, I'm sure it was really scary if you were some Irish peasant, but, obviously you'd go because otherwise remaining in Ireland during the Irish potato famine meant starving to death. But, most people would rather stay with their friends and family, even though, they might moan about all kinds of things. But back to the Jews again. The I mean, Jews have this idea that they're supposed to exterminate Amalek, right? I don't know if you know about that. And,
Yeah, the
and
some other group that doesn't exist anymore, but they call, I think, the rest of humanity Amalek now. I don't know. How does it work?
well, okay, so the story is that they were wandering during their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness in Canaan, and the Amalek just decided they hated Jews and wanted to exterminate them, and anyway, they were identified. But actually, even now, some rabbis say, are they extinct or are they not? But some rabbis say, oh, of course they're extinct. So we don't have this continuing religious obligation to exterminate them, because the story was, they killed some of them, but they took some of their women as slaves, and they obviously took their cattle. And the book actually says, no, kill them all, kill the women, kill the children, kill their cattle. And it was like, surely not. I mean, surely not even the cattle. And they were, told off by God for not killing them all. So well, that's their
So
story.
who are all non-Jews considered Amalek now?
No,
Justifiably
because
killed?
I mean, the rabbis who do talk about these things, it's like, no, we can't kill them, and anyway, we wouldn't know who they are because they're all mixed up, and possibly some Jews may have married them. It's
So how
like,
did Netanyahu pick the Palestinians to be Amalek, ready to be justifiably
did
killed?
he actually say that? Did he actually say that?
He famously said they're Amalek, didn't he? And then go and kill them or
Oh,
something.
I'm
Isn't that
not.
where we all learnt the term? Like, I didn't know about Amalek until Netanyahu talked about it.
Right, but you see, he's not a rabbi, and he's definitely secular.
Yeah.
So I guess secular Jews may have a few religious ideas in their heads, and then they think, oh, anybody we don't like is Amalek, right? And then it justifies us exterminating them. But I mean, if he did say that, well, he has no authority to say that because he's secular. But obviously, these ancient ideas are useful in war, because I guess you can even call the conflict in Gaza a religious war, because Christians are also being killed. That there are also Christian Arabs who have been.
But there's a lot of Jews on the Palestinian side. They're not living so much in Palestine anymore, I think, but they used to. It used to be all Palestine. But there's a lot of Jews politically at least, on the side of the Palestinians. So it's really not a religious war, yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say it is. I know a lot of people don't want to say it. I know the chief rabbi of Iran said, no, it's not a religious war. But actually, it's inescapable that it is. Because, if you're going to sort of look at it, through a theological lens, you would have to say, how is Israel being run? It's being run by Christian Zionists, right? Because you will hear a lot of Jews complaining about these Christian missionaries who fly into Israel and, convert them to Christianity, and there are all kinds of elaborate ploys pretending to be a rabbi, an ultra orthodox rabbi, and even performing male circumcision to trick lots of Jews into accepting that the Messiah will be Jesus. Because, in a way, if you're not really paying attention, anybody who says Jesus lives is actually saying they're Christian, right?
I'm just confused how you can say Israel is run by Christian Zionists. I can say it's funded by them in some ways, but to say they send missionaries and people converting to Christianity, I think they do have a bit of that, but not many people take them seriously from the videos I've seen.
Well, I mean, if America is funding Israel to the tune of, I don't know how many billions of
Sure,
dollars.
they're funding them, but I
Yeah.
don't think theologically they're Christian in
Well, I mean,
Israel.
Christians kind of get special treatment in the streets of Jerusalem. You get Christian preachers, shouting at Jews, asking them why they're not Christian.
But it depends which kind of Christian you are. Like they just had a Christian nun on Tucker Carlson the other day, right? You might have seen that. And she
Yes,
says,
I
well,
did.
we're treated pretty badly. So it depends what kind of Christian you are. Well, I suppose the only kind of real Christian that gets treated well, I guess, must be a Christian Zionist. I don't really know, but I guess.
Well, I mean, there is this new thing called the Messianic Jew. I don't know if you are aware. But basically, they're saying, they're saying, you know, Jesus was a Jew, don't you? Well, there's nothing, against your Jewish identity if you believe that the Messiah will be Jesus, and we'll call you a Messianic Jew, which is better than calling them a Christian, because if you call them a Christian, they're going to actually find it objectionable. But so they use a different method to get these Jews to believe that the Messiah will be Jesus, and a lot of them do object to it. What's his name, Jacob Farturecci, whom you've spoken to before, because there was something. There was this kind of Singaporean looking guy that he was really, hating on because he was converting Jews in California to Christianity, and using all kinds of clever arguments that Jews who don't quite understand their own religion, can be seduced into. Because I suppose, Christianity has the attraction of, you can eat pork, you can drink alcohol, you just have to say you believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. Surely it's more fun than, being a Muslim, having to avoid gambling and alcohol and having to pray 5 times. It's too much work, isn't it? But you can get to heaven as a Christian, so maybe a lot of people might think,
but having said that, even though you say Islam's harder work, and Christianity is more fun, you can basically do anything you want. But Islam's going, Christianity's dying, because people don't take Christianity seriously, and they see the value of the rigor of Islam. Like, here are the rules, and people are looking for direction and structure in their lives. They've tried the experiment of liberalism. I mean, I'm not saying it's a one battle, but people are, let's say, realizing they do need structure, they do need direction, and they're looking at the Muslims like relatively. There's a lot of famous Muslims who are seem to be more calm and directed in their lives, and even forget the famous ones. Look at the general kind of statistics in, let's say, at least the UK, Muslims having more children, more kids, staying in relationships, and all the opposite is happening in the rest of UK society, and Buddhism doesn't help. It's it's like a detached kind of philosophy, which makes you even more likely to not have a relationships, So, and Christianity doesn't seem to solve any problems, because you can be anything, do anything, be homosexual if you want. So I know you say, Christianity gives you all the freedom and it's much easier, but it's losing because
people need rules, which are kind of like safety rails, right? So you can, I don't know, lift yourself up when you have fallen, or not fall over the edge or something. So we do need rules, but I guess the average Western person thinks, oh, we're too cool for rules. We don't want these rules, because we're so superior or something. So So I'm saying it is a kind of war of unstated war of religions, because it's basically a contest between Christianity and Islam, as you were saying, and the Jew would be the one deciding, like, which of these two religions is more Noahide, right?
Nobody cares about Noahide rules. Like two people,
Well,
you, your friend, what's his name, Vincent,
I
and a
know,
few other
I know,
people.
but the point about the Noahide laws is that the Jews invented it, right? They invented it.
Mm,
It's their, intellectual achievement. And if they're going to be serious about the religion, they would have to say that Christianity is less Noahide than Islam, because
mm,
it's guilty of idolatry and blasphemy because they worship
mm,
a man convicted of blasphemy. So there's no way any rabbi who takes his religious principles seriously can say that Christianity is equally or more Noahide than Islam. It's a
mm.
minimum moral standard. I mean, the whole reason why they invented it, I guess, is so they can judge for themselves. I mean, I guess they're going to say, well, not all these Gentiles are bad. So how can we tell if a Gentile is a righteous Gentile? And then they have this tick list of the seven Noahide laws. Does he believe in the Abrahamic God without worshipping idols? Does he blaspheme against God? Does he commit murder? Does he steal? Commit all these Noahide laws. So I'm
Mm.
assuming that Jews use this seven tick box thing to assure themselves that they're talking to a righteous Gentile and not an idol worshipping, lying, murdering, stealing kind of Gentile.
Mm. I think ultra Orthodox Jews might care about that, but most of the secular ones won't care about
Yeah,
Noahide.
but that's the other thing about these secular Jews. Why should anyone listen to them? Because the ultra Orthodox think these Jews who break the Sabbath are heretical Jews. They shouldn't even be
Mm.
counted as Jews because, if they were taking their law seriously, they would be executed. They would be stoned to death for breaking the Sabbath because
Sure,
that
but these secular Jews really don't care. They do pride marches and whatever. They really don't care
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
So this is a problem with Westerners, right? For some reason, these most Westerners think the secular Jews, are more powerful because they have more money, and that's why they always talk about George Soros and well, any of the Jews that we might have heard of who are basically liberals, right? But
Mm,
they're obviously assimilated Jews, but they're not according to the principles of Judaism, righteous Jews, observant Jews. So,
mm,
it's up to the Gentile to kind of ignore and dismiss secular Jews and respect religious Jews. But of course, since most Gentiles are godless and atheists, that they're
mm.
not going to be thinking of doing this. So they're not going to be thinking of taking you know anybody's religious principles seriously. So the only thing they understand is money and power.
Hmm. Yes, that makes sense because I'm thinking when you said all these secular Jews, you said Soros, but there's a lot that I don't really understand. But I guess boils down to money, power. There's do you know Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle? They're basically tech giants. I don't know how. So he's very Zionist, and I was wondering he's godless or atheist, I should say. Why
I
does
don't
he
know his
care? I
name. What was
guess
his name again? I didn't quite catch it.
Larry Ellison, he's
Okay,
very
I haven't
rich.
heard of him. Yeah, but the
Yeah,
thing
he
is,
owns
he's not an
Oracle.
observant Jew. So
Yeah,
Jews would say, well, he's a
but he's a
he's a heretic.
Zionist.
Yeah, but you can be a Zionist without being a Jew. That's the
Yes.
other thing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of Christians. I mean, they keep saying, look at APAC. There are more Christian Zionists there than are Jews,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
these Christians have this idea that when they ingather the Jews to Israel and convert them to Christianity, the Messiah will come. And that is why Rabbi Tovia Singer, he was saying he could have relocated to Israel because he was living in New York and he was briefly chief rabbi in Indonesia, and he was saying he could have had all his relocation expenses paid if he'd taken, the offer of these Christian Zionists, they're actually paying Jews to go there and then, of course, be converted to Christianity, because that's their dirty little secret.
Mr. Otto Insight would like to interview me. That's interesting. I'm up for it. Swedish journalist working for one of the major papers in Scandinavia, 3 million readers. I'd like to interview David too. Yeah, sure. I'll put my email, I guess. Join the chat. How do I connect? No, I have to click on that or something. Can you just put my email? You know my email, I think. Or basically, Otto, just type Khalid Safir at you can see my name. They put Khalid Safir at gmail.com. That's my email. Or just you can easily find me. So
or find his channel, or find him on X.
I barely use
I think he's popped up before and said these things, and he never does. He rings a bell anyway. But
do you know Otto? Have you?
No, I remember somebody popping up and saying he wants to interview, who and whatever, and it's like, well, there are ways of doing it.
Otto, what are you interested in? We don't mind, change the direction of the conversation. Is it, if you don't mind, Claire? We're quite random, aren't we, in this stream?
Mm-hmm.
So Otto, what kind of questions have you got? You can test them out on me before the interview.
Quiet now.
Or maybe you're going to go quiet.
Yeah, possibly. No, I think he's his troll. I used to know before.
He could be trolling. Okay, who knows? All right. Anyway, so so it's interesting why people who are secular are Zionists, and I suppose it's not that interesting because they just want power, because Zionism was started by atheists, wasn't it? So it's just a power grab of sorts, using the stories from religion to colonize, isn't it? It's like you can't just go and steal land. You have to have an excuse for it. It's like, we were here 3,000 years ago. It's a good story.
Well, but the thing is, Theodor Herzl knew that Jews couldn't do it on their own, right? That they had to go to these to the Western imperialists and say, he couldn't do it without the cooperation of Gentiles, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess, where did he live? He was a German, wasn't he, Theodor Herzl? So he wasn't going to live under Sharia, under the Ottoman Empire, right? So he wanted, I guess, he was an Austro-Hungarian Jewish journalist and lawyer.
Okay.
So I guess he wouldn't want to be living under Sharia, but a lot of Jews were already living, in the Levant under Sharia, and but I think there is a difference between Jews already living in the Levant and European Jews who have their own idea about how they want things done, because I guess at the time after Jewish emancipation, but he was in 1896, and I don't know. I mean, there was the German Enlightenment and all these stories about the Germans and thinking Moses Mendelssohn was so wonderful. They invited him to become Christian, and that put him in an awkward position because, of course, he didn't want to do that. But Jews themselves living in Europe also had to give up their principles, like saying that, well, Islam is obviously closer to Judaism because of its Unitarian God, but there's no way the Trinity can be said to be kosher. But over time, when particularly in the Middle Ages, they felt they had to say nice things about Christians because they had to make contracts with them. for partnerships, for business partnerships. So they have to say, oh, Christians are all right, really. I mean, the Trinity is kind of Unitarian, blah blah, just to justify them making contracts. Because I think they have to swear or something, and it's like, is the promise of an idolater worth the paper it's written on, kind of thing, and they wanted to think that it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Jews themselves have diluted their principles, and probably a lot of them think it's fine to live in Christendom and go with the flow. And I guess when the West was doing well, that was all right. But then they've already had 2 world wars, and they might yet start a third. So we don't really know how things are going, because even very well people can just destroy themselves.
Do you think we're heading towards World War III? I mean, I suppose I think we're inevitably going to get to World War III, because we're not the human race, well, not about the whole human race, but we just generally tend to fight a lot, and we're not really trying to de-escalate things at all. So it's inevitable that it's going to happen, but it's really a question of, well, like, how close are we? How long will it take? And all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts? How close are we to World War III?
Well, I think Trump campaigned as a peacemaker, but he's just carried on with the foreign policy of Biden. Maybe it's just a political fact that that American presidents don't control U.S. foreign policy. So they just have to fall in line with the deep state who've had the whole thing planned out years ahead. Like, we have to invade all these oil-rich Muslim countries in order to control the oil and keep the American dollar, the reserve currency, so that we can continue exporting our inflation to the rest of the world, blah, blah, blah.
Did you say exporting inflation?
Yes.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Well, by forcing everyone to buy their oil in dollars, they keep the dollar buoyant, and they can continue to keep borrowing money. So long as people continue. We know Saddam Hussein proposed buying oil in euros, and then before and the next thing he was killed. So we know Gaddafi was proposing creating the gold dinar as the currency of African.
So how much is that changing? Like, are people buying oil in different currencies yet?
No, they all have to buy it using the American dollar.
Is that still the case?
Yes, and they want to keep it that way.
I thought the Saudi prince, MBS, had decided he's not going to stick to that rule. And I thought maybe 1 or 2 people started buying in a different currency. Am I wrong? Did you not hear something like that? That MBS did not decide, somehow made a statement or something, that he's not sticking to this agreement of the petrodollar, like you have to buy everything in dollars or buy oil in dollars. Did you not hear anything like that?
No, I haven't.
But I do definitely think there's a lot of things changing. There's the shift in power. America increasingly has less power. I think a lot of people are buying
because of
weapons from other people. Indonesia's buying, where is it? Their planes from who? China? Everybody.
China or Russia yeah. So okay, I've just found this is Investopedia. It says global oil trade in US dollars. Since 1970s, most international oil transactions have been conducted in US dollars. Countries thus need to hold US dollars to buy oil, creating a consistent demand for the currency.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think that might have changed. Maybe I can check it up somewhere, but But it hasn't changed much yet. But I think everything's slowly changing. America doesn't seem to be generating much wealth anymore. It's got a high GDP, but I think that's just because they manipulate money. I don't know if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
actually make much money.
So America wants to maintain this position, and now we have BRICS coming up: Brazil, Russia,
Yes.
India, China, South Africa, and they have other ideas. I mean, they haven't actually proposed. Maybe they can all, have use their own currency, but obviously America wants to smash them before this idea gets off the ground, and that's why.
Yeah, Trump wants to smash them, and he's basically making enemies out of absolutely everyone. But I'm going to put a tariff on you and a tariff on everybody, right? It's like insane. And then he's actually driving people towards BRICS, isn't he?
Well, yes, the more you kind of, try to stop someone from leaving, the more they want to go, right? The harder you squeeze on something, the more it wants to get away from you.
But also,
So
if you make an enemy of everybody.
yes, and make, even people who never cared about, the politics in the Middle East, like saying, well, that all these people being killed, and Westerners are hypocrites, because they go on about, oh, the Jews in the Holocaust, but now every day we see, atrocity videos of Palestinians dying, and we just scroll past, and at least the Germans had the excuse of, well, we couldn't see it. All we knew was that Jews were being taken away somewhere, before being sent away or something. But these days we have no excuse, to say, oh, we didn't know that Palestinians were being killed. So all they can say now is, like, we don't care. We don't care. Right? Which is what those two Jews you were talking about at the beginning were saying. We don't care. And have we got a right to say, oh, but you must care? Because, I mean, if you say that, people will just say, how can you make me care about people I've never liked?
It's crazy, yeah. How can you make me care about other people dying? I didn't like them in the first place. That's such a strange argument. Before I came onto the stream, I have a WhatsApp chat with another group, looking at the comments and laughing at the last one. But and the conversation was about basically this increasing racism. We've probably talked about this before, but there's a huge push towards Islamophobia. There's racism, but I think Islamophobia is kind of the direction of that racism, because everybody else doesn't really matter. There's no point being racist against Hindus, because really the real power in Europe, or dominant growing power in Europe, are Muslims, isn't it? They're growing in population. They are, proactive. They get new politicians in. They organize themselves. Do you know what I mean? Everybody else doesn't do anything compared to what Muslims do, right? And then Joe commented, and he reminded me of it. He says, why would Otto want to interview me? All I want to do is make Europe Islamic. So I was thinking that's an interesting topic. The discussion I was having on WhatsApp was with you can call secular Quran group. I think you joined it once, isn't it? It's like they discuss the Quran. The person who leads this Quran study group is an atheist, right? But anyway, and we had all these different ideas about why it is that racism is increasing and Islamophobia is increasing in Europe. So I'm intrigued. What do you think? What's the reason? I initially said it's to distract the masses, the uneducated masses, from the reality that they're being made poorer. And it's actually the rich, the billionaire class, that are saying, you know what, let's distract the poor and uneducated who won't study Islam, and they're already miserable. Give them gives them something to be angry with. And a really easy thing to be angry with would be with Muslims, because white people are not in relationships, they're not getting married, they're not having children, and Muslims are doing exactly the opposite. That is a really good group to be jealous of, and that's a really good group to scapegoat. So that's my idea. It's not my idea. Loads of people are saying it, that all this racism is being stoked by billionaires. It's a distraction. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because there's nothing in the media that is constructive, right? I mean, they could be talking about the problem and talking about solutions, but they don't, because I think maybe their whole agenda is to, divide and rule and keep us, fighting each other and arguing about nothing and blaming each other, instead of uniting to say, hey, you haven't got anything that would work. You haven't got a viable moral system. I mean, I've been telling these Christians, it's like you don't even believe in your thing, right? So how can you defend it? You've never been able to defend it, even when you were burning heretics at the stake, because burning heretics at the stake was your only way of defending yourself against
You can't
accusations
defend
of idolatry.
Trinity. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when they try to defend it, they just get upset because they sort of know that they're talking nonsense and they've lost the argument, which must also be very demoralizing. And I try to go around it by saying, well, we can discuss, in a general philosophical way, the nature and purpose of religion. Like, you don't have to talk about Islam or Sharia. It's like, what do you think is the purpose of religion? We don't have to think about Islam or Judaism or Christianity. We can think of any religion then, and they can't. It's sort of like they can't even have this conversation.
Joe, what's your problem with Islam? Why are you concerned about Europe becoming Islamic? Maybe you can tell us, and then we can respond to that. That'll be intriguing. Yeah, but I can guess this sort of otherism, racism, not willing to change. The funny thing is, it's like Islam is what they need. That's what white people need. That will solve their problems. Like, they're not in a relationship because there's no rules anymore. White women just do anything they want, and white men are like, okay, I'm not going to have a relationship with a white woman because she's going to have sex with some random stranger because she's an atheist, and there are no rules for atheists.
Yeah. So, I mean, they can't think in the long term because, being an atheist, as you say, it's an atheism that is actually killing them because, if you do believe in an afterlife, then you will, refrain from doing things that would end you up in hell, right?
Yeah.
That would be fornication, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't, then you'll do whatever you fancy doing at the time. And so you have no self-control. And these men, they can't think in the long term. They don't like women, but they probably like to have sex with them once and then move on to the next one and then to the next one after ghosting them on social media. And that is how they work. That's how they get their rocks off. And of course, this will increase.
Yeah, that's a very small
hatred.
minority that have all the sex amongst the white people. But the people who have the most sex are people who are married, because you got sex on tap, as it were. But other people, if you're not married, you have to either pay for it or, which is expensive to do every single time, right? Even if it's cheap, a cheap prostitute. Or you basically have to hunt for it, which is a lot of effort. You have to get a lot of people drunk, spend a lot of nights just trying to get sex once, which is too much effort, I would say.
Yes, and they don't have licensed brothels, which is, I guess, how they did it in the olden days. So everybody's confused. Nobody's getting what they want, and men and women hate each other, which is why they can't bond and even think of marriage as something they'd like to do. They think of marriage as something hellish, and then kids and paying for them and putting up with them. They would rather die, and they basically voted with their feet. They really would rather die, because they, when somebody rejects the cure, and even when they know got a very severe a life-threatening illness, that kind of explains how bad things are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to make it like a 1 hour thing. You know me with regularity and stuff like that. You probably do realize, isn't it? I like to keep things like an orderly way. So if we try to finish in 9 minutes, shall we? I thought a funny last topic could be, Sandra, would you be interested in marrying me? I'm looking for a third wife. Do you know I've got 2 wives already? Anyway, we can make that a topic. But it's also an interesting topic in, like, I think I was saying last time that I don't care about, like, how do you find a wife? What's a good way? Like, most people are like, they have these romantic ideas, and I think I'm very not romantic. I'm very practical in terms of what would make a lasting relationship. What are your thoughts?
Well, getting along with them. Oh, are you asking Sandra?
Right, well, I'm asking you, I guess, until Sandra says something. Sandra could be gone by now.
Yeah. Well, obviously, having the same values and interests, that would be a start, right? That you can bear to spend time with each other when you're not doing anything particularly exciting, just, hanging out, as they say. So I guess we have to have habits that are bearable to other people. We can't be too neurotic or obsessive or
How
sensitive.
important do you think looks are, Claire? But you can join in, Sandra, if you want. I'd love to marry you to other wives. I don't mind. Are they from Jordan? One's from Jordan, one's from Ghana. And in my I had a vague idea of marrying from around the world. So somebody from China, and then somebody from England or from the West at the end to make it 4. But I just have, it's nothing particularly serious, but I might be going to Indonesia or what's
For a
next?
third wife.
Yeah.
Right. So, but how much time will you be spending with your wives that you marry? If you're going round the world, how much should they expect?
I mean,
to
I'd
see
have to bring them
you?
back to Jordan. Yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't be traveling around the world to meet each wife. It wouldn't be much good. I think that would be like being with one wife at a time, which wouldn't be. I'm not sure what the benefit would be of that. It'd be just very expensive to travel around the world just to meet a wife.
Would you be taking your second wife to Indonesia? That's how I understood the situation.
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking about that. I haven't actually properly started looking. And she said she wouldn't be impressed if I was looking for a wife while going on holiday with her. So, which is quite understandable. So we'll have to work that out. I haven't thought it through properly.
Right. So would you be okay with you having a third wife?
I think, yeah, she doesn't mind so much.
Right.
It's always a cultural thing. So in the West, they've got this idea of romance, or a romantic idea, which is like we think romantic is like the default way of, relating to the opposite sex. But that's like, wasn't it decided or invented by like a category of like poets, isn't it? Right. And they made up a whole bunch of ideas, like there's only one soulmate, and they should be able to mind read you, and you should, all sorts of ridiculous things, right? This soulmate should be everything to you, these are really unreasonable things. Like, if you're married to somebody, how can they be perfect, and how can you have all your conversations with them like they're only human beings, right? So these romantic ideas, I don't think really work, because they put a lot of strain on one human being to be perfect. So what I'm saying is, in short, is the romantic idea of love is that there should be only one person. But in many cultures, it's like, you can have many sister wives, as they call it, or something. And it's not such a big deal. It's just as long as you can pay for it.
Yeah, so I guess, for independent women, that might be all right.
Independent women, that's an interesting word. I really don't like that word, actually. I think independent women are the people who are causing the most problems, isn't it? Like they say we're independent, but they're not really independent. They depend on men for money, but they like to say they're independent. Um, I'm the kind of wife I'm always looking for is a traditional person who is not independent, but just like traditional values. I will be your wife. I don't want a job. I want to just be a housewife. Um, and I'll do my bit and you make the money. And that's it. Really, really simple.
Well, I suppose if you're going to be able to provide for them and they're happy, then great. But there seems to be an awful lot of running around in this proposal to find a third wife. Are you trying to break some kind of
Running
record?
around to find one because even Jordan's not very good. It's becoming westernized. I might try to find, and to find the more traditional wives, you have to know Arabic really well. But the people who speak English have become more westernized, and so they're not good. They're not very. I wouldn't consider them. Um, and I'm thinking of going to the Philippines because I hear there's a lot of very. You can call it. I can't call it traditional, but the one that they're marrying a lot of older men. They don't care about that. They just care about being provided for, and yeah. So I think it's a possibility. Even Indonesia is not that. They're not really. They're kind of moving away from second wives and stuff like that. Even though it was
Well, away
possible.
from polygamy.
Yeah, like my friend over here in Jordan, who's Indonesian. He's the child of a third wife, but he says it doesn't really happen anymore. Like these things are rapidly changing as societies become more affluent. They stop following their traditional values that brought them to that affluence in the first place. So yeah, but I think the Philippines seems to still have some of that. I don't know what
You'd
Sandra
have to
said.
go to Cebu or Mindanao, I think.
I haven't properly started looking, but you seem to know. What about Cebu? I don't. I've just heard that name in some videos when researching about Philippines. What about Cebu? What's special about it?
I believe I believe that that's where there is a Muslim majority island.
Yeah,
I
that's an
mean,
interesting.
or do you want a Catholic? I mean, because they're mostly.
Yeah, but I'd ask her to convert to Islam. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think most of these most Christians don't know anything about Christianity anyway. There's just like a cultural connection to it, and if they do have some connection to Christianity, that does make them actually better human beings anyway. But I don't think they understand the Bible. They just understand that you shouldn't have sex with everybody at the same time or something, or some basic ideas like that. But it makes them better to that extent, but they have no idea about the Bible. So yeah, that would be my requirement because, as I think we were saying, you kind of have to have the same sort of ideas and same direction in a marriage for it to work. I can't really see all the last comments just to why. Can you see Son last few comments? There's bird nest rot fest. Islam is vastly superior in dealing with modern day society. Agreed. And then there was something underneath that Sandra is saying, but I can't see it because it says connect to comment or something. Oh, Ghana, that's interesting. Do you have mixed black and Arab babies? I'm not Arab, by the way, I'm Pakistani, but we don't have kids yet. It's taking too much effort. So that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to get even a younger wife. My current second wife is 31, but I'm going to look for an 18, 19-year-old. What's this? How many babies do you have? 4. I'm aiming for 100. I'm not sure if it's possible. We'll see. Good. Excellent. Where are you from, Sandra? Anyway, you can email me, Sandra. We can work on it. So I'm very practical about it, not very like romantic. If it's the right person, then that's it. but you can email me easily at, you can see my email, khalidsafir@gmail.com. Well, you can't see it, but just put my name together and put at gmail.com, and you can email me and we can figure it out. Yeah. So what do you think,
Yeah,
Claire?
I'm sorry, I got it wrong about Cebu. The largest religious group is Christianity.
Oh, okay. Cebu is the most Islamic, the biggest Islamic group or area.
No, Catholicism. I thought it was Cebu. I mean Mindanao, I think, is where all the
Yeah.
Muslims are.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I'm working on. I mean, I'm not sure how important that's going to be, but I'm more like the kind of person who like aims for interesting things to do. So yeah. But before, I
Have you
really
decided
felt I needed a second wife.
So you'll be going to Java or
Yeah,
Sumatra?
so my Indonesian friend is saying I really should go to Java. He's talking about a particular place called, I keep forgetting the name, begin with B, near the
Bandung.
capital. Sorry?
Bandung?
Yeah,
Bandung?
exactly. That's right. Yes. So he said that's a quieter, more comfortable place to live. It's not as packed like Jakarta, and it looks really modern. It's incredibly cheap. So I want to check that area out just in case I move there. As you know, I'm a digital nomad, you can call it. So it's not too hard to move, but not to get married there, I don't think. But they're really good in terms of immigrating there. They're really organized. They're really cheap, really modern. So if I do marry, let's say, a Filipino, I wouldn't really want to move to Philippines because it seems to be too backwards and relatively expensive or something, but it looks nice. So anyway, those are just some ideas.
Yes, but perhaps you'll find a few contacts through this exchange about your
Yeah, thanks. You could
plans
have
for the
set me up
future.
possibly with Sandra. Who knows? All right.
All right then. Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Speak
Catch you
to you
next
next
week.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Take
right.
care.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.